Last year, I made you a Mohair Alternatives video, a long and substantial one. I tested everything. I did math in 3 currencies. Okay, I didn't. Ravelry did, but still, I was extremely pleased with myself. Then my viewer Victoria turned up in the comments with this. On my really sensitive days, I love my sweater in Katia, Atenea. I think it may be soft enough for you, Nicole. Soft enough for me? For my princess-and-the-pea, welt at a glance, ruined by a single alpaca fiber skin? I did not believe her for a second. So I bought a ball to prove her wrong. Out of spite, which is one of my favorite reasons to buy yarn. And now I owe you a whole second video because Victoria was right. This stuff is absurd. And it costs about 1/3 of what my winners cost, which I'm trying not to take personally. Here's a refresher from last fall's video. Those yummy, fluffy sweaters designed by, seems like, every designer and their dog. No, not you. Holding 2 strands of yarn together, a lace weight, something fluffy with a halo, and usually a fingering weight. There are some of us who cannot wear that kid silk mohair that seems to be going into every one of these things. I'm one of those people. My skin gets so easily irritated. If I ran my fingernail across my arm like this, 5 minutes later, there'd be a giant welt. Mohair is particularly deadly for me. If I even look at it, I start getting the heebie-jeebie, squirmy, that, you know? If you know, you know. But I do want to knit all the pretty sweaters. So what am I going to do? Fibers that come from animals have scales, and the amount of those scales and how rough or smooth they are will vary depending on the type and quality of that fiber. A very rustic woolly wool, when you look at it under a microscope, kind of looks like you could scrub pots and pans with it. The little tiny fibers that stick out that create that halo, these little guys right there, they look really small, and they are, but they're also a little bit on the wiry side. So while it's not the scaliest fiber out there, the fiber ends are quite springy and stiff. That stiffness is what can cause that pokiness. 20% super kid mohair and 30% silk. Okay, are you ready? Oh, no, I just can't. Moondrake Fua Fua. This is 70% brushed cashmere and 30% superwash merino. Will it bite? Ooh, no bite. Ooh, yes. This is one of the priciest yarns of the mix. A 50-gram skein has 288 meters, which is dang good. However, it also costs $59 Canadian per skein. And last up on the luxometer, is this 100% brushed cashmere from Louise Robert Yarn over at Biscot Yarns, also in Montreal. And oh, it is yummy. And oh, yes, I can wear this right up against my skin. 50-gram skeins, 235 meters per skein, and at a mere $48 per skein. This one also worked out to 20 cents per meter. It's the same price per meter in the end as the Fua Fua. It's real luscious though. Luscious. Today we are only dealing with this one, the yarn that I missed, against the 2 that beat everything last time. And I actually have cast this on, which you'll see later, because of course I've already bought enough of it for a whole sweater. But just before we talk about that, I want to mention the fuzzy sweater that I have on. This is Poet's Dream by Thea Coleman. I knit this in Somme DK by Camellia Fiber Company. It's a 50% Pima cotton, 42% baby alpaca, 8% merino blend. The colorway is called Rosewood, and you may notice that it is not Nicole blue or green, and I'm okay with that, mostly. It is definitely lovely and soft, but because of that alpaca content, I cannot wear this against my skin without taking an Allegra beforehand, hence the white shirt. However, this Atenea, one of Katia's concept line yarns, this is the one Victoria recommended. 42% extra fine merino, 40% cotton, and 18% cashmere. It comes packaged in 25-gram balls, which are actually just small hanks stuffed into the label wrapper. And you get 175 meters or 191 yards for a mere 11-ish Canadian dollars. You may need to talk to Uncle Google about where you can source it near you. I only found a couple of sources here in Canada for it, at least for now. Okay, softness. For my skin, this is the whole ball of wax. I swatched the Atenea and put it against my neck, my wrists, that inner arm spot where the alpaca got me last time, and I waited. Nothing. Not so much as a nibble, which lands it right between the Moondrake Fua Fua and the Louise Roberts Dolce Cashmere. I'm not going to swear it out-softens 100% brushed cashmere because it doesn't. It's a tie. All three yarns at the top of a no-prickle podium. So you might be asking, Nicole, why are we here if it only ties? Okay, 2 reasons and then a number. First, the blend. And this needs a little quick detour because here's where Ravelry, yarn websites, and online shops can vary at best and be downright confusing at worst. Every yarn swears it's lace or fingering or DK, but those categories are a bit of polite fiction, especially with fuzzy yarns. The halo makes a yarn knit up heavier than it really is. The honest metric, and the one we're going to look at right now, is Grist. How much length you get per gram of yarn. The more meters per gram, the finer the yarn. The fewer, the thicker. That's the whole concept. So we'll weigh these 3 and then assess them based on the facts. By Grist, the Atenea is the finest of the 3. It is the only one that's a true lace weight, no matter what Uncle Google tells you, which is exactly why it blends like a pro. The same fine haloed profile as those lace weight mohairs that those held double patterns are built on. So it drops straight into that strand slot minus the itch. The Dolce is the heaviest. It's more of a fingering / sport weight. So it's a bit happier knit on its own rather than blended with a second strand. So for blending, Atenea. For a solo knit, Dolce. And the Fua Fua lands somewhere in the middle, so you'd have to do some needle change-ups, watching, gauge shifting, testing to see how this one would work as a blend or knit on its own. And the color range for Atenea is a super duper bonus. It comes in a proper spread of shades. Which brings us to the part you actually came for. Oscar, have you been watching Jerry Maguire again? Fuwa runs about 20 cents a meter. Dolce, also about 20 cents a meter. The Atenea, 6, less than a third of the price. For a yarn I can't tell from the other two with my eyes closed. And here's the kicker. It's from Katia, the same company whose acrylic yarn I waved around last time as the budget option. Also makes the yarn that just beat out my two fanciest winners. I don't know whether to applaud or send somebody a strongly worded letter. So no, it didn't out-soften the champions. It matched them and undercut them by 2/3. And if you watched that first video, wrote down Dolce, saw the price and made a little hooling noise, this is the one I'd hand you instead. Okay, fine, Nicole, you've sold me on it now. What do I make with it? Here's a couple of options. You can knit it on its own or hold it double to fake the fluffy sweater look without the fluffy sweater consequences. On its own, you've got a lace weight with a halo. Here are some possibilities. Katia actually has quite a few lovely patterns designed specifically for this yarn, and this woman's raglan cropped sweater is one of them. It's actually knit with just a single strand of the Atenea. It's got some really pretty lace work at the raglan shaping and shows you how versatile this yarn actually can be. Like we said, the Grist is close to a lace weight mohair, a touch heavier, so it's great in that role. But because it's a boucle with a little bit more of a halo, it can handle that shift and be knit to a fingering or even sport weight gauge like this pattern. You will need to swatch it though to make sure you're on track. You heard me. Don't pretend you didn't. Couple other fantastic possibilities. Halo by Caitlin Hunter, which is designed for a lace weight plus a fingering together. This Atenea would work beautifully in this very, very lovely, cozy, fluffy sweater. Or there's the very popular Instant Crush by Joji Locatelli, which is 2 strands of lace weight held together. Again, because of the great color range of the Atenea, it would be a fantastic sub out for those lace weight mohairs in this one. I'm quite fond of this pattern. I may have to knit it for myself now that I have found something I can actually wear. Caitlin Hunter and Joji Locatelli both have deep catalogs built on the same blending yarns technique, and the 2 designer pages are the quintessential rabbit hole dive. So the short version of this story is Atenea can hold almost any fingering to lace pattern in place of mohair. One little be prepared note before you cast on. I did knit a swatch. The Atenea held double with a merino fingering on a 4mm needle. And straight off the needle, it came out a little stiff, stiffer than I wanted. Felix, put that down. But here's the reassuring part. One soak and a proper blocking, and it relaxed and softened right up. So don't write the yarn off over a stiff-ish first swatch. Block it, then judge it. And the full knit up verdict is coming, because the one I'm actually knitting lives exactly in this realm. This will be the Elizabeth blouse, which is the whole reason that Atenea is in my hands right now. This is the next video where I am putting my money where my needles are. So that's the one I missed. Katia Concept, Atenea. Soft enough for the princess in me, cheap enough that there'll be less grumbling in the comments. Thank you, Victoria, for the tip and for the gentle public humbling. I'll recover. Now here's your part, because this whole video happened because one of you said something. If you've got a yarn that survives your worst skin days, the one you grab when everything else is itchy, put it in the comments. I read them, and obviously I act on them, and you might end up in the sequel to the sequel. And if you want to see what happens to the Atenea knit into a petite knit blouse, that is the next video. So click that subscribe button so it lands in your feed instead of disappearing into your algorithm's sock drawer. I say goodbye. Oscar, Felix, say goodbye. Now go knit something soft and tell your skin I've got its back. Bye.